Alright everyone, here's the video that a lot of people have been requesting. I mentioned it once before and I've been getting a little bit of feedback as to when I'm going to do it. Well, we're getting it done. 91 Jeep YJ, doing a lift kit, but we're doing a different style. I'm not buying a set of $400 springs. I've got a set of springs up in 1990 model GMC Jimmy out of the junkyard that I'm going to be chopping up, putting them in. Install on the cheap. So, come on y'all, follow along. Okay, we got the Jeep lifted up. And what we did, I put the jack underneath the axle, picked it up by the axles, and put the jack stands under the frame. If perchance you guys ever use concrete blocks, there's only one way to use a concrete block safe. Always put heavy, thick pieces of wood on top of it or something to distribute the weight, because it is a very bad idea to put jack stands on concrete blocks without something to distribute the weight amongst the block, because the blocks will bust and it will drop. So I always put some heavy pieces of wood like that, and notice how the blocks are laid. They're like this and not like that. Like you got the holes in the blocks. You want the holes of the blocks going up and down. And we always put another one in here just for safety. Now it's like this. You can never be too safe. So when you're working under a vehicle and you're pulling axles out, this and that, be as safe as possible, please. So what are we doing first? We're going to pull that back wheel. Okay, now that we've got the back tire off, we're going to take the U-bolts out, the factory U-bolts. Right here, you got 4 nuts up under here. Right here. 4 nuts, 3/4. Take them off, and that way we'll be able to lift the differential up to break the leaf pack apart. Because we are not taking out the main leaves at all. We're going to do this with the main leaves still installed. Okay, you see we got the jack under it, and we've actually got some tension on the leaves picking up the rear diff, but this is wanting to be cranky, you don't want to separate. Bring out the linear persuasion tool. Just peck it, and she drops right down. That's how you separate that. So I wanted to show you, don't get a whole lot of lift on your rear differential. You don't want a whole lot, because you don't want to put yourself in a dangerous situation of too much movement when the leaves separate from the diff. So, I mean, we picked it up, as you see, there maybe 1.5 inches or so at best. You don't want a whole lot of lift out of that rear differential, because you don't want a whole lot of movement when the spring comes loose from that. Okay, now way up underneath here is your centering bolt. There is a hole, let's see if I can get it. See my pinky sticking up right there? That bolt right there goes through this whole leaf pack. There's a nut on the bottom side here, but that bolt head is specifically shaped to go up inside that hole right there. That's what locates your differential in your leaves to keep everything centered. And the nut is right. Can you see what the camera's in? Oh, there it is. But there's the nut. So what we're going to do next, we're going to pick the differential up enough, tie it around the frame to get it out of our way. Then we're going to get a couple C-clamps. We'll show you here in just a moment. C-clamp the leaves together, then take out the centering bolt. Okay, we have this suspended by the little tie-down straps here. We got plenty of gappage in between here. Now we need to spread these clamps. And what these clamps do is your leaves are just flat pieces of metal stacked on top of each other. There can be times if you're under some heavy twist, heavy articulation, that these leaves may slide laterally and be knocked out of line. These brackets prevent that from getting too far out of whack. So what we need to do, we need to spread these so we can slide the leaf packs apart. So take your breaker bar, pry bar, you wedge it in where you see the tip is hanging on this leaf. When I pick it up, when I push it up, it's going to spread this one back. And for the front one, you can, if you get lucky enough, you can hook it with that bar and pry this back. But often what I've been doing is either big old channel locks. If you hook them just right, you really don't have to hold much on your grip up here. It's not a hard hold at all, and just pull back on it, it'll spread them right open. So we're going to get that set up, and also notice my C-clamps in place. It's not tight at all right now, but whenever we start loosening up this location bolt, the centering location bolt here, the leaves are going to start expanding. This clamp is going to hold that in place, keep from beating anybody in the head. And if y'all, I know somebody's going to make a comment, your clamp's bent. It's all wobbly jaw, people. Y'all know what wobbly jaw means? But in Tennessee definition, that means it's crooked. So, it's alright.
It's been used.
It's been very well used. It's alright. This cover was closed. Okay, what we're doing, we're taking this, we're going to tuck it upside there. It was kind of a rather tight fit, so I took the hammer, tapped it, because you want the end of your bar to hook on the leaf back here. And once you get there, let me give you guys a little bit of suggestion. On your hands here, don't like this push up. Does it work? Of course, but I promise you they're subject to slip, and you don't want to take any more skin off your knuckles than you have to. Open palm, push up, and keep your hands open, so therefore if it does slip, you're not going to smack the frame. Another little bite, push back. Now we got that spread open on that side, then we're going to try to hook this side, pull it back. Okay, this one's normally the hard one. Sometimes you get lucky, you could hook here, bend it back. But other times, you got to take your bar like this, come in from this side, get it pulled up some. And then you flip your bar back around this way. Lay it down flat, just on the other side of this, come in and see where it hooks the leaf right here. Then you simply take it and pull up. And again, keep your palms open so you don't smack the frame if it slips. Then once you get it out like that, make sure you got a couple of teeth engagement here. And if you got a really good, nice bite like these do, you get a wore out set, I promise you, you're fixing to knock yourself stupid. Because these things aren't the easiest to bend. That should pretty well do it. Now if I knock the leaves back in line, you see that we got a good spread here that those leaves will be able to come out through the clamps. So next we're taking that bolt out. Okay, on top here we got vice grips to hold that. And down here it's a 13mm on the bottom of the bolt here. Let me get this. Which I know I showed this a moment ago. 13mm here. So now, what you should get lucky enough when you start loosening this right here, a lot of times the vice grip will rotate around. It'll hit the shock mount here, and it'll stop and it'll hold it for you. So I'm going to take 13 down here, loosen it up. Okay, the nut's gone off the centering bolt. You don't, most of the time you can't even push the centering bolt out, which you don't want to quite yet. You want that to keep your leaves in line while you're releasing the pressure. Now the C-clamp, to give myself more control, I put this pair of vice grips here so I can loosen the clamp and slowly let the pack expand. Now you want a C-clamp that's going to give you plenty of thread depth here, because after some long point the arc here relaxes to the point that the leaves just kind of fall apart. But if you don't have enough and you try to just snatch the clamp out, people, springs under pressure is dangerous, so don't do it. Now slowly loosening the clamp. If you watch the pack here, you see the gaps starting to open up in them. See, our bottom one's about out. We got all the pressure off the leaves now. You just have to take that one out. Now, all of our pressure's off, but see, that leaf moves okay. But one thing we do have coming on over here, which is not a big deal, our strap here needs a little bit extra massaging, but if it was pulled over this way, it'll fall off. And the same goes for this right here. And they're not under any real pressure, so it's not going to hurt anything for me to put the pry bar here, pull back on it, and it'll pop that leaf on down, and the rest of the pack should pretty well fall apart. So I'm going to separate that and drop the rest of the pack. Okay, now we're down to nothing but the main leaf, and we're leaving it in place. We will be making one small modification to it. This hole is going to be made larger, and this is the new centering bolts. See, the heads up here smooth. That's where you're going to use the vice grips to hold it in place when we get ready to tighten this up. Notice how much longer, which is going to work hugely to your benefit. But what we need to do, we need to take this angry cricket right here and make this hole bigger. Now some people are going to say, well, just use a drill bit and do it. Well, let me tell you something, people. This is spring steel. This stuff is no joke, and it takes a serious bit to cut it. We discovered that using a little angry cricket with a tungsten carbide cutter heads right here will walk right through that stuff way faster than a drill bit. Trust me, we tried. So use that little angry cricket Dremel here, open up this hole to the point that just slides through with a good fit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the little Dremel tool here, come from the back side of the spring, I'm going to insert the bit through there like that, but I'm going to just slowly, as it's running, work it in circles like this. You want to try to keep it as circular as possible and not turning it into an egg shape or cutting weird divots in it, so it's just going to be a nice smooth cut like this. There she goes. Now you notice the first time that last time I test fitted it, how it barely went through. I knocked a little bit more off of it. That is mostly, the camera where you can see it, that's mostly due to the reason that I want to have just a little bit of wiggle room with it, because as you stack the other leaves in, it helps to be able to manipulate it just a little bit as you stack the other leaves. So you want a good tight fit. I mean, that is a perfect fit right there. You got just a little bit of wiggle, but it's not, I can't move it laterally, but I can wiggle it like this, but to grab it and just move it back and forth, not happening. And that's what matters. That prevents your leaves from sliding against each other, you know, moving this way or that way. That is what's important. Your leaves do not need to slide like this or like this. Okay, here's all the shims. I stacked them all together, got the hole lined up, and used a little angry cricket there to cut that hole open. And again, much like the belt and springs, it's just enough that the bolt slides through, no lateral movement. And all your Jeep parts that you're going to reuse, all your Jeep shims, all your Jeep springs, you have to do this procedure too. I'm not going to show you every single spring to cut open, but the fact is, the Jeep springs have to be opened up to accommodate the GM bolt. That's right, Jeep people, you're putting Chevrolet parts in it. Okay, here we have the S10 pack. We're getting ready to break it apart. What we're going to be doing first is spreading these, but it's a really important thing I want to point out to you guys. This is a Jeep leaf. They're all the same size, the whole stack, each one of them are the same thickness. This is the GM S10 pack. Notice something? Thin, thick. GM packs are way thicker. Now there's less leaves in the GM pack, but the actual spring itself is thicker, which is a good thing because they don't wear out as fast. Now, what most people do when they build the Junkyard Lift packs is they use this middle leaf out of the GM pack to go here under the main leaf, then put the Jeep parts back, the remaining Jeep parts in. That is a typical way people do it. I'm going to go outside the box. Now, whether I like it or not is yet to be seen, because I've never used two S10 leaves. It may be stiff as a log wagon, but we'll find out. Alright, when you're breaking these S10 packs loose, clamp out onto your centering bolt, let it drop, hit the ground. We got a 15mm right here, cranking off that nut. Remember, you got your clamp here to hold the pack, the energy together. Once we get this bolt out, then you loosen up the clamp just like you did the Jeep packs and let that pressure off slowly. Here's your main Jeep leaf. You have 4 in the stack in the Jeeps, okay? Main leaf, number 2, number 3, number 4 going down. So number 3, number 2, number 3, number 4. Well, what I am going to use, this leaf and, oh crap, drag it out. These two here are the GM leaves. Number 1, 2, and 3. What I'm using is number 2 and number 3 in the back. In the rear, only thing I'm going to use, off the Jeep pack, I am not using that one. I'm not using that one. but I'm using that one. I'm using number 2 of the Jeep stack for the rear. So 2 bottom leaves from the GM pack, 2nd leaf from the Jeep pack. So in order for me to do that, this clamp right here's got to go. Why? Because the GM has one on each end, so we're going to utilize those. So we got to take the grinder, can't see the camera, right here, this rivet head, we got to grind that head right there off. Make it smooth so these pads have a smooth surface to ride on. So we got to grind that off. Okay, this is the Jeep leaf that we're going to be using. It had that clamp on it here, that band that keeps the leaves in line, but the GM one we're using, it's got 2 of them, one each end here. Grind that rivet head off, which you see the bracket laying here. Now I'm not touching it because it's hot, but you will have this right here sticking up. That has to be ground off. This whole area right here needs to be really smooth because these pads here are going to be sliding on that. So once you grind that piece off, that's got to be ground down nice, smooth and flat to utilize this pad sliding on those leaves. So once you grind off that knob, which you can faintly see right there, once you grind that off with a rough rock, if you take one of these flap wheels, I'm using one that's worn out right here to give it a final cleanup right here. Give it a final cleanup so it's a nice smooth surface for that pad to be setting right along here and rubbing on. Okay, here's the old centering bolt that had the Jeep pack held together. This is the new GM bolt. This bolt's bigger. This is a 5/16 diameter. This is a 3/8. Now the head diameter is also a major factor in this install. The head diameter on this right here is way smaller than this right here. We have to grind this one down to the same diameter as this one. So basically what you do is you're going to take your calipers, if you have a set, or if you got a really good set of rulers or something. Get your width here. Then we'll take the grinder, and I'll show you how in just a moment. We're going to keep turning this head down until this slides over top of that head smooth consistently. So we'll start grinding this down, and I'll show you when we get ready to fit. As the grinder head's moving, you see how he's turning it? You just want to keep rotating like that to make sure it's nice and circular evenly around that bolt head. Because if you get it off center like that, it's going to twist your rear end. It's going to cause it not to locate correctly with the center to the spring. So we're going to grind this down. We'll come back and test it with this, make sure it's the right diameter. Okay, after grinding like I demonstrated to you a moment ago, you notice how this fits here. Now this fits here. The 2 bolt heads are the same size now, so they will properly locate the rear differential with the leaf springs. So you have to do that, otherwise the rear diff will not locate. Will not even go over the end of this pin right here, over the end of the bolt. So you have to do that. So be sure you don't skip that belt. Skip that step. Okay, now that we have the bolt cut down, ready to recess up inside this pad, we need to get the bolt down inside here. But guess what? You can't just stick it in through the top like that. So we got to jack the rear differential up and get us some more space, or attempt to. Darn track bars wanting to keep the rear end from moving.
Jacking the whole Jeep up.
It is. So, okay, we're going to find an alternative method here. Okay, because of the track bar being right there on this side differential, it's not as easy to get that centering bolt in this place right here, because you got to be able to bring it centering bolt. You can see what I'm saying. You got to bring it centering bolt in here, the location bolt, in at an angle to get it coming through here because of the pad here. There's not enough distance. So taking a breaker bar, pushing down on the leaf to separate this, then you can feed the bolt down. We tried to jack the rear differential up because of the track bar being here. It's actually picking up the whole Jeep, leaf and all, obviously. So if you can't move the rear end up, move the leaf down, pry down the pry bar, drop the bolt through. Okay, we're putting our first spring up, which is the S10 spring. I got my shim sitting here in place, but what you want to do is measure your center line here to the very edge of your leaf here. Your longest dimension from center line to that to the end of that, your longest dimension goes up front. So just remember, your short dimension goes toward the rear, your long dimension goes toward the front. This is 22.5 from here to here, but again, you may get a leaf of a different dimension, but this come off a 90-mile GMC Sonoma. That was what, that dimension is. Yours may be a little bit different, who knows, but put your long side toward the front. Okay, now that we got our leaf stack put together, we put our centering bolt through, and vice grips up top because it's round, so you gotta have some way of holding that. And down here we've got our ratchet tightening up the bolt and squeezing the leaf packs together, put them in place. And once you get to a certain point, your bands here on the ends will have to start massaging them over the top main leaf. But we'll get to that point here in a second. Looks like the rear ones are good. Front ones might have to manipulate a little bit, but it won't be by much. So just keep cranking that bolt down. That's the reason that they come so long, that you accommodate a lot of leaf. And once you get them to the length that you want, and you're comfortable with how you build your pack, then you can cut it off, cut off the excess. Alright, we've cranked down some Oompa Loompa on these things right here, got them good and tight. And yes, we got a lot of bolt left over, which is good though, because I'm not going to cut any of my bolts off until I'm sure I want to keep my stack this way. Again, I'm repeating myself. Jeep leaf, S10, Jeep leaf, S10. Most people only use that as the S10 leaf. Then they go Jeep. I added one more S10 leaf. It will make it, it will lift it up higher. The ride will be a little rougher. I don't know how much yet. So I'm going to try that out, but I'm not going to cut all my bolts off just yet. If I don't like it, I'm going to pull this out, put a Jeep leaf back in. And so yeah, I just have to wait and see how this works out. I've already looked at the other side. I like the way it looks, but I really haven't driven enough to give it a fair opinion yet. So now what we got to do, we're going to get us a clamp these leaves together a little bit. Then we got to take these bands, squeeze them together to lock everything in place. Then we take the rear diff, set it back down, get it lined up with this top of this bolt. Okay, as we're setting the differential down, there's a hole, like I pointed out earlier, right here on this mounting pad, the rear differential pad, and this location bolt here, or centering bolt. It has to go up inside that hole right here. Well, when we were setting the rear diff down on the jack, it was way out of line. So, get our ratchet straps, hook to the frame up front, come through here, tie it to the rear diff, crank this down. It's pulling the rear differential this way. It's helping us line it up. So this is how the backyard mechanics pull it off and do what they got to do. See how it's pulling it forward? So we're going to hold.
Maybe too much.
It is. It needs to go back that way a little bit. Yep, that moved it. Hold right there, because we're darn close. I just need to set the jack down. Get on the other side, get a better shot.
What's your fingers now?
Yeah, it looks really close. Go ahead.
Alright, getting ready. Coming down.
Go.
As it comes down, it moves forward. Shit,
Okay.
that's off of the jack.
Now we're going to have to. Looks like we're going to strap the rear end to the leaves now. Pull the leaf up to pull the diff down to the leaf. Because I bet you that track bar's holding it.
Can we put the jack under the leaf and raise it up?
I don't see why not. Get it right here on the. Alright, there you go. Maybe get a little room to put the bolt plates in. There we go.